the new productivity, how you can get more out of your life. Today on Keeping You Organized. Well, today on Keeping You Organized, we have Lisa Montanaro from lisamontanaro.com, who's got an interesting background, started out as a lawyer and then a professional organizer. But today, Lisa, we're going to talk about productivity and all the different nuances that go along with that. So welcome to Keeping You Organized.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Well, let's dive right into it because we're going to talk about productivity today, and we're also going to talk about business and how businesses use productivity, because you do a lot of consulting with businesses on productivity. So there are a lot of different models out there as far as, how do you get someone to work for you and be productive? Are you running into some of that?
Yes. So, and it's very different depending on the company, but I did see that one of my companies is a gaming company. One of my clients, is a gaming company, and they make some of the games that are really popular out there on social media. And when I walked in, it really was a bunch of 20-something millennials dressed down, very sort of, casual style. But they're extremely productive. They're getting a lot done. And in some ways, it reminded me of my days as a lawyer, because the company provides food for them. There is literally catered lunch, catered dinner, so that they don't have to leave. They could stay there later. So they do it in a way that is comfortable and doesn't feel as strenuous as, let's say, billable hours in a law firm. But they're certainly setting up an environment where they can be as productive as possible. They can work from anywhere in the company. There's Wi-Fi. They could chat with someone in Hong Kong on a number of different monitors. So yeah, it's interesting. They really are setting up productivity in a way that maybe years ago we would have thought of as not productive because it wasn't formal.
Now, do you see a difference in the time management and productivity challenges a millennial has and maybe a baby boomer? And do you have to approach them differently, or is one maybe more open to learning than the other, or what do you think?
Yeah, and I don't want to overgeneralize, but I do teach about organizing differences between the generations. We've got the Bob Hope, the greatest generation. We've got the what I'm going to call the baby boomers, my generation, which is Generation X, and then we have the millennials. And yes, they do learn very differently. They have very different learning styles. Their needs and their big why of why they want to do this is often very different. And also, what's a struggle for a lot of productivity experts like myself is I do a lot of workshops and speaking. And so you'll have someone in there that's 25 and really gets all the technology tools and actually doesn't have a struggling relationship with their stuff, for lack of a better word, George Carlin's word, stuff. Whereas you have a baby boomer, really the biggest struggle they still have is, let's say, in the physical realm, and they haven't maybe grasped onto some of the productivity tools yet. And some of them are coming into it kicking and screaming, and some of them are the biggest users of, let's say, social media and Evernote. And so I don't want to make a huge overgeneralization, but usually the millennials tend to be more mental clutter focused, and the baby boomers tend to be more physical clutter focused.
Now, is there a killer app out there that you just love that you couldn't live without, and that maybe you recommend your clients to use?
Yes, and I have no stock in the company. I probably should. Dropbox.com, so DROPBOX.com. I couldn't live without it. I run my business from it anywhere in the world. It enables me to take all my files that are on my computer and have a direct copy of them on Dropbox. And I also have a file for each of my clients. I share documents with them there, but I could be anywhere in the world, and all I have to do is go to either Wi-Fi or open up my phone with a data package, and I can have every single file in my computer, which is pretty cool.
Now, you started out, you said, as a lawyer, so are you kind of document driven? Do you like to hoard a lot of documents and keep lots of papers and use those like classification folders and things like that?
You would think so, because law is so paper driven. But I have changed over the years, and I don't have a ton of paper. I've definitely embraced the scanning and the digital media. But I'm very tactile. So for example, I went into using a online calendar kicking and screaming. I mean, I used a Filofax or something like that for 10 years. And obviously, I realized many years ago that if I was going to teach productivity, I had to learn all the tools really well. And now, of course, I couldn't live without all of my technology tools because they help me run my life and my business. But what I like to say to my clients is that technology has to be the servant, not the master. And you have to be really careful that you don't let this stuff own you. So I still have some paper files as a backup. Obviously, my taxes are still on hard copy and they're backed up. And yes, they have the tabs and I'm using all the Smead products. And but I'm not overly paper focused. I will admit that I still write a journal, like my personal journal, and I still write a handwritten journal by hand. There's something very tactile about it because I'm talking about a lot of personal issues in my journal. I really like to hold the journal in my hand and feel the pen on the paper. So.
Well, now you became a certified professional organizer in 2007, and your business kind of morphed from what we would call traditional organizing consulting into now more productivity and the speaking and stuff. Why did you make that jump, and how did it happen?
You know, it's a good question, and I think it's easy now to look back on it. It wasn't as strategic as you would think, even though I do business strategizing with my own clients. There was a point around 2007 when I became certified that I realized that I had spent a lot of years in the living laboratory doing the work with clients. I published a book in 2010. And I think what started to happen was a lot of people started to ask me more higher level questions, and it wasn't so much about the things and the stuff, but about the relationship with the stuff, their behavior, their habits. And I think I really did a huge shift where I realized that you're never really organizing the things. You've always been organizing the person and the person's habits and mindset and lifestyle. And that's way more important than the actual stuff. And I think once I made that shift and started transferring skills through my speaking, my coaching, consulting, it just sort of organically and naturally happened. I started using independent contractors and sending them out on my hands-on organizing jobs. I felt really good about that because I felt that they were organizers that were really good at their craft and needed the work. And so I felt it was kind of a win-win, and then that freed me up to do my speaking, coaching, consulting, and all the work that I was really enjoying a lot more and was really good at. So.
Well, now, because you're doing a lot of this consulting now, what would you say is the percentage of the amount of, like, oh, this is a basic tool or a basic thing that you need to do from a traditional organizing point of view versus, we're going to talk more about relationships and your overall strategy and things like that. What would you say that is?
It's funny. I never thought about the percentage. I will say it's definitely integrated. So all the work that I spent doing hands-on organizing definitely is integrated into the work I do now. And so it's sort of hard for me to pull it out. But I'd say it's probably a good 30%. You would think it might be more, maybe 40%. I don't think it's half, and I'm just being honest. But it's certainly important, and I'm glad that and I don't think I'd be as good of a consultant and coach and speaker if I hadn't spent all those years doing the hands-on organizing, because I really do understand the struggles that the clients go through. But it's definitely not a huge portion of it. I wouldn't flip it. It's definitely not 70% the organizing side, because really a person, there are a few people, maybe 15% people that can just change their stuff, and that's good enough. But most people, it really is sort of underlying behavioral issues, habits, mindset, and they have to at some point own up to that. Otherwise, they're just putting a Band-Aid on it.
Right. Well, listen, we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, I want to talk a little bit more about productivity, and particularly now in this world of, downsizing, economy slowing and things like that, where there's all of a sudden a whole new breed of entrepreneurs out there, and I know you're working with a lot of them. So when we come back, we're going to join Lisa Montanaro from lisamontanaro.com and talk more about productivity. Do you need ideas on to-do lists, keeping focus, and filing information while on the go? The 100 Ideas for Better Organization ebook by Smead is sure to be a helpful tool for your organizing needs. Each idea is titled so you can quickly scan the book for whatever topic you may need to reference at the given time. With over 100 years in the organizing business, this free ebook will become a well-used resource and motivator for introducing ideas that boost your productivity. Get the 100 Ideas for Better Organization ebook by going to smead.com/100. Download yours now at smead.com/100. Smead, keeping you organized. We are back now on Keeping You Organized with Lisa Montanaro from lisamontanaro.com. And Lisa, before the break, we're talking a lot about productivity because you work with a lot of companies. Now, what have you seen? You've been organizing a long time, kind of the shift, maybe it was, 2008, 2009, when all of a sudden there's all this downsizing and you have all these new entrepreneurs coming out who maybe don't have the skills. What were the challenges there that you saw maybe in that transition?
Yeah, and that is exactly when it happened, was around 2008. And, in some ways, what was wonderful about that downsizing is that it stimulated the economy from an entrepreneurial standpoint. So we had all these new business owners, which was great. And I happen to love small businesses and entrepreneurs. But a lot of them had no idea how to run a business. So most people go into business doing what's called the technical skill, and they see themselves as a technician. Oh, I love to organize. I'm good at it. I'll go organize for a living. Oh, I love to make jewelry. I'll be a jewelry maker. But they don't think about the side of running the business from management standpoint, marketing, networking, finance, operations. And thankfully, there are great programs out there for that. And then, of course, there's coaches and consultants, and I run my own programs. I have programs for new entrepreneurs, and then I have programs for advanced entrepreneurs. So there's help out there. But I'd say that's the biggest problem, that people take really seriously the technician side of a business, but they don't actually realize that they're going to be a business owner. And this may sound a little sexist, but I see my male clients immediately see themselves as the CEO of a company. So if they introduce themselves to the networking event, many of them will just say, oh, I own a company. And then someone will say, well, what does the company do? Whereas a lot of my women entrepreneurs will lead with the technician. They'll say, hey, I'm an organizer, I'm a jewelry maker, I'm an interior designer. So it's also just shifting it and letting all entrepreneurs, regardless of their gender, realize that they are a company owner, they are a business owner, and they have to take that very seriously.
Right. Well, we have a lot of professional organizers that watch and listen to the show. What are some of the most common challenges that an organizer has? Because I would think that, maybe someone sees the business opportunity and says, hey, I'm kind of an organized person. I could do that. And, maybe they even convince a few people. What are the biggest hurdles they have in starting their organizing business?
That's a great question. And you would think that all organizers are organized, but you and I know that that's not necessarily the case. So a lot of them are really good. Well, there's two issues. One is some of them are really good at organizing, but realize they're not good at organizing others. And they have no idea that that would be an issue for them. They might not have the patience to organize someone else. They might not know how to transfer those organizing skills to someone else. They might not know how to customize a system to someone else because they can only think of their own systems. So that's one of the biggest hurdles, is they have to figure out, are they able to do this for someone else? And then sometimes the flip side is true, where they're really good at organizing others, but their own systems are a mess. And, because I am a business coach to organizers, I hear all the behind the scenes. We pull back the curtain and like, oh, the great and powerful Oz, actually your office is a mess. And you don't have any systems in place. And so I do help professional organizers, as their business coach and consultant, put all their systems in place so that they can feel really confident about running their business, and so that they don't fall into the shoemaker's shoes syndrome.
Well, let's think about in the last couple weeks. Let's get it real current here and think about maybe a client that you worked with. And it doesn't have to be an organizer, but maybe a small business client. What was their challenge, and what did you do to help them overcome that?
That's a great question. So I have a client that's a very successful client, been in business probably about 11 amount of time as me, has a number of employees and independent contractors that are working for the business. And I came in as the business coach, and one of the first things I do is sort of a productivity audit, look at all the systems and see what's in place, where the holes are, and then that's what we work on for our time together over 6 months. And there was no policies and procedures manual for the business, and yet there were all these moving parts. So what happens is, if the business owner, God forbid something happens to her, there's no place where the business is blueprinted, and no one really knows how to run all these things. And so one of the first things we are doing is creating a master policies and procedures manual for the business. It makes it easier for the business to delegate to others. It creates a succession plan if something happens to the owner. So I'd say that's a huge one, and that's one that literally came up in the last few weeks. But that's actually a common thing that I work on with a lot of business owners.
Now, how do you let's focus in on that manual. So do you kind of do the interviewing, kind of assessing, and then do you have a writer come in and write that, or do you write it? Or, I mean, you're a lawyer, you probably like to write those long briefs, right? But how do you put that together? Is that where you bring in your contractors to help you?
Yeah, that's a great question. There are a number of different ways, depending on their budget and how we want to do this. I do have templates that my clients can buy from me, and they're already pre-made. So I sell agreements, I sell an operations manual, and that saves them a lot of time and money. And then what they usually hire me for is customizing it with them and pulling it out of them more and more and more. If they are able to, I tell them to take the first crack at it. Sometimes actually their team is a huge help because their team knows all these moving parts. Sometimes we are interviewing people within the company, as you mentioned. And there are times when I'm sitting down with my iPad because I have a keyboard attached to it, and I am just writing and writing and writing because, as you said, I'm pretty good at writing that type of manual because I've done it for so long. But sometimes it doesn't make the most sense for me to be the one writing it. Because I'm not the business owner. So oftentimes it is pulling it out of the business owner's head. And it's basically their intellectual property from an internal standpoint. I mean, they're not selling it, but it's really important, and the business can't really run without it. And the problem is it's all up here and no one else knows it. And also, if you get really busy as a business owner, that becomes mental clutter and you can't focus.
Well, now coming up, you're going to be speaking at like a NAPO pre-track or pre-conference session. Talk about what that's going to be and kind of what you're going to cover.
Sure, yes. So I'm doing a pre-conference session at the NAPO conference in April, and it will be, I believe it's 4 hours. It's a half day. We'll be spending a lot of time together, and it is called Strategic Business Expansion. It's like up, down, and sideways. It's like, how do you expand your business strategically? What do you put in place? What are the growth spurts that a business normally goes through, and at what point do you have a natural progression to a business, and what should you add on and what should you strip away? So, and what's really fun about that is these are my esteemed colleagues and peers, and I love presenting to them. And I love the organizing industry. I am a proud NAPO member. I volunteered on many committees. And so this is a really great way for me to give back and serve my own industry. So it's good.
Well, let's talk just a little bit more about productivity and the emotional side and kind of the reason for getting productive more than just getting more done. Can you expand on that a little bit?
Absolutely. So I have seen a really wonderful shift, and it's only in the last few years. And I can give you all sorts of reasons why I think the shift has happened too long. But I think what's really exciting is that years ago, they would hire a productivity consultant or organizer when they wanted to work on hard skills. And that's what companies would call it. And they would say, we want you to come in and make our workers more efficient because we want a bigger return on investment. We want to make more money. We want to get more out of these employees and have them actually produce more. So that was the definition of productivity. Now I'm seeing major companies, small companies across the board thinking of productivity on a larger scale. Like, okay, what does it mean to live a productive life? So my tagline is purpose, passion, productivity. And I try to work with my clients that productivity can also be the means to living a more successful, fun, passionate life. It means more time, literally, to do all the things you love, not just to work more. So a lot of times when people hire me, and I work with a lot of entrepreneurs and organizers, but I also work with a lot of CEOs and larger business owners. And a lot of times in the past, they would contact me and it was more about get more out of me. And now it's help me leave here. Help me get stuff done so I can actually go to my kids' soccer games. And so I could do all the things, write that book I've been meaning to write, go on a vacation. And I think this is really a wonderful shift in our society, and I'm happy to see it.
Well, listen, we're almost done here. I want to give you an opportunity to talk about some of the programs and some of the consulting, kind of ideal customers you're working with, and just talk about where people can find out more about you at.
Great. Thanks so much, John. So one thing I'm really excited about is I launched a new venture, and it's called lmguniversity.com. And it is an online learning platform where I offer courses to help people improve their careers, businesses, and lives. So it's all virtual, so I'm able to teach from anywhere in the world. And they're all group programs. And I have a program called Successfully Self-Employed Semester. And that's for newbies. Usually it's in the first few years of their business. And that's a more affordable program. And then I have a 6-month master's mastermind program that I offer to expanding and advanced business owners. And then I have a La Dolce Vita group coaching program on improving your life, because I have seen such a big shift where people are focused on that. So if anyone wants to check out those courses, if you just go to lmguniversity.com, it stands for Lisa Montanaro Global University. It's a lot of fun. And then my hub is lisamontanaro.com. What I love to do is write. And I like to write specifically about a lot of these issues that we've talked about. And so if people want to follow my blog, they can go ahead and subscribe. I have a YouTube channel. Basically, if you just put in Lisa Montanaro, all the social media, you should be able to find me. I'm everywhere. And yeah, I love working with organizers, but I actually don't limit myself to that. So I work with lots of other business owners and individuals and companies. So it's a lot of fun. I absolutely love it. And I feel very lucky and privileged to be doing it after 11 years. So knock on something.
Yes, good. Well, we will put that in the show notes for the program today too, so people can connect with you. And Lisa, thank you so much for just having the time to make time for us, and now it's time for me to go to my daughter's violin lesson. I want to be more productive after this conversation. So
there you go.
Great.
Thanks so much, John. It's been an absolute pleasure.
All right. Lisa Montanaro from lisamontanaro.com today on Keeping You Organized.